Trinitarianism, that God is trine when counting by persons, but uni when counting by gods, or tripersonal but monotheistic.
And then when you follow that up with there's only one God, you end up with
exactly what? So you agree with me now, Bobby?
the conclusion that there are three gods and there are not three gods, which is logically incoherent.
So the only reason it's logically incoherent in the premise you set up is because you are counting by being. As I mentioned earlier, you failed to understand that there is plurality when referring to the hypostases and singularity when referring to the being.
In other words, you cannot affirm all 7 of those premises.
Yeah, again, the guy is simply using certain terms in order to justify polytheism. You call them persons, and you make a distinction between person and being. Those are the...
No, Bobby, you're just incapable of comprehending the person-nature distinction. I mean, bro, you can literally just Google person-nature distinction and at least understand it so you don't look like an absolute idiot, dude. The funniest part is, guys, if you go to the video and read some of the comments, I mean, the Muslims in the comments, one, are lost. They're lost, dude. I went and read through the comments. They're lost. And two, I mean, they're sheep. They're just saying, yes, Bobby. Bobby, yes. Bobby, yes, Bobby. You're just using certain terms. You're just using certain terms. Bro, these are basic theological terms. If you were ever an Orthodox Christian, you'd be able to understand these terms, dude. So he's doing exactly what the 3rd century modalist heretic Noetus of Smyrna did. I mean, he failed to distinguish between person and nature. This was common in the 3rd century, guys, when these certain modalistic theologies would spring up. So Noetus was a very famous guy who kind of propagated this modalist theology. He was basically saying that in order for Christ to be God, he has to be the Father as well. Let me bring up a quote from Noetus, actually. I believe this is Hippolytus quoting Noetus. They answer in this manner: if therefore I acknowledge Christ to be God, he is the Father himself. Again, you see how Noetus is incapable of differentiating between person and nature here. He is the Father himself. If he is indeed God, and Christ suffered being himself God, and consequently the Father suffered, for he was the Father himself. So he's basically saying that in order for Christ to be God, he has to be the Father as well. If Christ is not the Father, then he is not God, but something else, or of a different essence, right? As the Arians later claim. And he equated the Father with what it means to be God, the divine nature. So he's confusing person and nature. He pretty much thought that the personal names are indicative of an underlying nature and not of something distinct from the nature. Since person is the same thing as nature in his misunderstood view, it's impossible for the natures of unique and numerically distinct persons to be ontologically the same person, because a distinction between person entails a distinction between natures for Noetus and other modalists of this time. So to educate heretics on the distinction between person and nature, I don't really even have to give my own take on this, guys. Let's go to Saint Basil, who is the eldest of the 3 Cappadocian fathers, if you guys are familiar with him. Let's go to Saint Basil's, let's read a quote from letter 38 from Saint Basil. This then is the hypostasis or understanding, not the indefinite conception of the essence or substance, which, because what is signified is general, finds no standing, but the conception which, by means of the express peculiarities, gives standing and circumscription to the general uncircumscribed. So maybe a little bit confusing because I just kind of pulled this out of context. You guys can go and read the entire letter. It's St. Basil, letter 38. So what he's saying is that a nature cannot exist apart from an hypostasis. It means something to stand under. This is to say that the hypostasis is not the nature, but rather it's the unique and concrete subsistence of the nature, which is localized and known by its certain properties, right? Like the Father is unbegotten, the Son is begotten, the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father. Kind of like Peter and Paul are both unique hypostasis, circumscribing human nature. They both possess the totality of the nature. One is not more human than the other, right? They're both a human nature. The human nature which Peter possesses, for instance, includes a body, soul, spirit, etc. Since Paul is a man, the same description will apply to him as well. These properties of human nature do not extend into the conception of person because they are not traits specific to either Paul or Peter, but are shared by all men. And St. Basil goes into this. This quote that I ripped out is just, he kind of summarizes it before he goes into the details of addressing the heretic. I mean, they are describing what Peter and Paul are, not who they are, right? These things proper to their nature. Therefore, since a nature and its attributes are common, a person by dint of being unique and having peculiar properties is more than just his nature and is not reducible to it. Are you guys following? Hopefully you guys aren't like this individual right here, just making out of context stupid statements. So if you guys want to have a more proper understanding, please do go read St. Basil's letter 38. You can just go find that online. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, comment, and subscribe for more, and follow my social medias in the description below. I'll see you next time. God bless.